All right, and we are back today, episode 13.
Lucky 13.
Lucky 13. Wow, we're making it. 13 episodes. So if you've listened to all these episodes up to this point, you're a real one. That's a real fan.
That's a big fan.
That's a big fan.
Huge.
Yeah. Because if you listen to all 13,
probably listened to them all twice, actually.
Do you listen to them every day in the
that's
shower?
Only 26 episodes.
20. Yeah, if you listen to it twice, 26. You listen in the shower, right?
I listen to them all the time.
When you don't shampoo.
Well, you have extra time.
Are you still going once a week shampooing?
Yeah, of course.
Once a week shampooing. See, I tried it. I couldn't do
Maybe
it.
with this smoke, I should be doing it more.
Yeah, bad. If you're living in California right now, be
But
careful.
I feel like this is a reasonable hair day today.
Oh, it's a great hair day. I've never seen a bad hair day.
Well, I've had a few.
You have?
A couple times.
Like you wrote it down.
Yeah.
It's that rare.
Over the years, it's been a time.
I love it.
Anyway.
I'm super excited because today we have one of my really close friends and an amazing, also one of my doctors. So I have two of my doctors sitting here today.
Wonderful.
And I want to introduce Dr. Jason Khadavi. He is
having me.
an amazing podiatry surgeon located here in Southern California who treats patients from actors, celebrities, especially athletes. That's one of his big niches, and models. And we're excited to talk to him and pick his brain. So
About the feet.
about the
feet talk today.
Yeah, the feet talk. So if you have 2 feet or even 1 foot, you're going to love today's episode.
Yeah. If you have two, that's twice as many feet.
And that's 2 reasons you should like this
That
episode
is.
and share and subscribe and comment and
Yeah.
ask us questions.
Yeah.
So we're super excited. Let's get into it. Today is a great episode with Dr. Jason Khadavi. All right, episode 13. Let's get this rolling. I'm Dr. Deepak Dugar.
And I'm Dr. Jeff Toll.
And we're talking about some cool stuff today. Crazy times right now. California's on fire.
Unbelievable.
People are trying to cancel Netflix.
Unbelievable.
People are doing Botox and they're pregnant.
Unbelievable.
And too many people have Lyme disease. We're going to get into a lot of stuff today. And we have
Inconceivable.
we have our foot expert, Jason Khadavi, today. So we have a lot of cool stuff going on today. I'm super excited.
Lyme disease is I think overdiagnosed and not often the correct diagnosis.
Well, Amy Schumer, very famous, well-known comedic celebrity.
Yep.
And Justin Bieber, also a very well, I don't think he needs an introduction, but
He's Justin Bieber
he's the Biebs. Both have come out this week publicly talking about their battles with Lyme disease. Tell us about Lyme disease and their diagnosis.
I'm not a big believer.
Believer, you did that on purpose.
I did. So this is the deal with Lyme disease. Lyme disease is an incredibly real thing. It's caused by a tick bite. It's commonly found in like the eastern seaboard, Atlantic, like call it Philly down to, I guess, even North New Jersey, but basically Atlantic seaboard.
Mm-hmm.
It is in other areas, but less common. It can cause sometimes some neuropathy. So you get bit by a tick and then you get a big rash on your leg. And then, down the road, you can get some nerve pain, other weird symptoms. And because it's famous for causing weird symptoms, when people have weird symptoms, it's commonly a test that's when you're just throwing stuff at the wall. Now, here's my personal take on why I don't doubt that they believe they have it and they're not just making it up and throwing it into the public sphere to like get pity or something. I think they really were told by a physician they have it. But this is why I think that was probably wrong is these tests are not perfect. So let's start there. So
Like the Lyme titers?
any test has a certain percent of accuracy. How often is it truly positive when it's true? And how often do you get a false positive? Okay. And let's say this test is 1% false positive. Okay. So 1 out of 100 tests, 1 out of 100 times that you order it, you're going to get a false positive.
Right.
If the likelihood of them truly having it is less than 1 out of 100, then they are more likely to get a false positive than a true positive. So
Interesting.
the problem is when this happens to celebrities, it happens to wealthy people, it happens to everyone, where they've had some symptoms without a clear cause. And sometimes those can be, symptoms like weird, neuropathic pain or neuropathy. We can't figure out where it's coming from.
Aches or skin things.
Sometimes with Lyme, it's often like these random things, achiness, tired. I've been so tired recently, doc. Can you figure it out? And if you go to enough specialists and enough doctors, especially if you're wealthy, and then you go to naturopathic doctors that are whatever, they will do a disservice to you by ordering tests that aren't indicated. So you've never been exposed. There's no history of a tick bite. You haven't been camping recently. The timeline doesn't make sense. Even sometimes these people are told, so this doctor will order all these tests, including a Lyme test and including 1,000 other things. And I've had patients come to me with results saying, doc, I got diagnosed with Lyme disease and mold, and I have too much mercury, and I have this, and like, fix me. I have 17 things wrong. Each one of those things happens to be an incredibly rare. So let's say it's Lyme. Let's say it's some other rare infection. The odds of you having both of these diagnoses is literally impossible. Like each one is a 1 out of 1,000,000.
Got it. So
and
just
if you
because
multiply them by each other, it's impossible statistically. It's
so just because
more,
the array of tests is positive doesn't mean they actually have those diseases.
Yeah, you have to have. The reason you see a doctor instead of just ordering every test under the sun is the tests aren't perfect, and it takes a doctor to know which tests are indicated based on the symptoms and the story.
Because
if there was a computer smart enough to do it, eventually one day a Neuralink doctor could come up with a better set of ordering tests. But you have to be careful to order the possible tests and not order things where the likelihood of a false positive is more likely than a true positive. We get this all the time. I had a lady referred to me recently who was losing weight and was told she had Lyme disease. And no one had really asked her a story. And her story was that her husband had committed suicide about 2 years ago. And since that time, she hadn't been sleeping, she hadn't been eating, and blah, blah, blah. And she'd been losing weight. She really was losing the weight. But if you go to enough doctors and order enough tests, you'll get a false positive, such as a Lyme disease test. And it's really harmful for patients because instead of getting to the heart of what's really going on, they stick to this diagnosis and they get the doxycycline, and then they get more doxycycline, and then they see another infectious disease doctor, and the symptoms don't go away because it's the wrong diagnosis. And if you talk to them and say, okay, maybe it's having 17 million people watching every step you take and not being able to go outside, and maybe that's why you're tired and achy. And
so you don't think Justin Bieber and Amy Schumer have Lyme disease?
I don't think so. Like, could one of them? I guess.
Yeah.
But I think it's unlikely. I think
so. Overdiagnosed in general.
I think Lyme disease is, and I don't want to take it away. There are people with Lyme disease.
Yes.
It is a real, very, very real thing.
Disease.
Just like lupus is a very, very real thing. There are a lot of things that are real things.
Right.
That are overdiagnosed. Lupus being another one, because again, the test, the ANA test, is not a perfect test, and it can be positive.
And it's positive for so many things.
Yes.
Like so many rheumatological conditions are positive from ANA.
And people have a positive ANA who have nothing.
Yeah.
Many people do. Thousands of people do.
Right,
Millions of people have positive ANAs with nothing.
Right.
And so if you test an ANA on someone who's depressed, and then they may then start going around telling people they have lupus, you've then done them a disservice, because you can treat their quote unquote lupus and they will not get less depressed or their symptoms, their fatigue and everything will not get better.
It's like a 70-year-old man, like you were saying last episode, who gets a full body cancer scan and finds out he has prostate cancer. He may have lived for 20 more years without ever doing anything about it.
Well, that's a little different because that prostate cancer is a real cancer, you know? These are not the right diagnosis, and it's also not getting to the bottom of the problem.
Right, but a lot of people die with prostate cancer that never was ever problematic.
That is
when
true.
you look at anatomical specimens.
We'd like to know so we can watch it and stuff like that.
Right.
Whereas these things like the Lyme or the positive ANA, these are things where we wish we didn't get that test.
Yeah, because you're almost chasing the wrong thing now. Right. You're ignoring the real symptoms.
We're ignoring the real problem. You know, the elephant in the room probably for both of them is the difficulty of celebrity.
Right.
You know, I have a lot of these patients, whether they're on tour it's insane. They go on tours. They're never in their own bed. They have no idea what time zone they're in.
Yep.
They're having to perform in front of this many people. Doesn't matter if they're tired. Doesn't matter if they were on a bad flight that was having turbulence and they didn't get a second of sleep. Doesn't matter if their spouse is back home.
And it's constant competition.
Constant.
Drake just came out and he said, Champagne Poppy Drake, just said that he looks at his tenure now in music, and his number one thing that he's most proud of, more than any achievement, is him not succumbing to fame. That's what he said his number one achievement was. And it makes sense because these guys have such a high level of competition every day with themselves, with their peers, and if they're not, if their heyday was 3 years ago, no matter how famous you are today, you're going to be a little depressed. You're going to be a little sad compared to where you were 3 years ago, unless you're doing something new and innovative. Like 50 Cent hasn't put out a good album compared to, Get Rich and Die Trying in his first album, A Massacre, these albums. He hasn't put out an album like that in 10, 15 years. But he still feels good because he's on top of his production game. He's releasing all these new TV shows, Power, the new spinoff just came out. So he's crushing it with these things that make him feel like he's growing. But I feel like for a lot of celebrities, and a lot of people in general, if you're not growing, you feel stagnant. If you feel stagnant, you feel sad. So maybe that's a part of it. Maybe that's a big part of it.
I think it's more likely one of, I don't know him personally, but I would guess I would bark up that tree more than the Lyme thing. Because
this album didn't do as good as his last one, so maybe he's a little sad. Problem. Yeah, maybe he's a little sad.
I think he from what I know about him, he's someone who likes to be out and about and at events and parties and likes to, be the center of attention. So I think he may be someone who's missing touring and missing, the life that he had, and so that could be part of it.
Yeah.
I know he's maybe some substance abuse stuff too, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. It sounds like, at least his new life looks very clean. Married to Hailey Bieber. And it looks like they have a nice, happy Christian life. Yeah. To be married to Hailey Bieber. She's a beautiful woman. Yeah. She's a beautiful woman.
Her dad does a great...
Which one's her dad? Which?
Is her dad the guy who does the Trump impression, right?
Alec Baldwin?
Isn't it?
I think that's her uncle.
Oh,
I think her dad's.
It'd be great if
the other Baldwin
you
brother.
You go to like
Steve Baldwin's her dad.
You go to Thanksgiving and
Alec Baldwin's there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's got to be a great Thanksgiving dinner.
That's got to
be a great Thanksgiving.
So what else were we going to talk about today? We were talking about can you get Botox during pregnancy?
Yeah,
what is this?
It's a good question. So Chrissy Teigen publicly said that she's getting Botox for her migraines.
Right.
And she's pregnant. And classically, no one's supposed to get Botox when they're pregnant. No one. And any doctor, any dermatologist, any med spa, they will turn you down if you say that you're pregnant. And the reason is because there's this one tiny, tiny iota chance that if it does get absorbed in the bloodstream, technically it could be fatal for the fetus.
Wow.
It would absolutely kill the baby if it got into the bloodstream. That being said, there are hundreds of studies showing that Botox does not get absorbed in the bloodstream when it's injected locally. It's a locally acting drug, does not have systemic effects.
Right.
So I think the real reason doctors are so careful about it and don't give Botox when people are pregnant, or fillers, which makes no sense because fillers definitely have no systemic toxicity, is because of the liability.
Yeah.
Because let's say your child is 18 and didn't do well on his SAT, and you say, that one time I got Botox from that med spa.
Yeah.
You could technically go back and sue them, So I think it's one of those situations where the liability is more reason than anything else why doctors would never do injections of Botox and fillers while you're pregnant. So that being said, Chrissy Teigen's doctor, I'm sure she signed some sort of waiver and has given the doctor permission to do it, taking on the risk.
Does that happen to you where either celebrity patients or very wealthy patients try to pressure you or ask you to do things that are not really medically
all the time
safe or good to do?
All the time, especially with cosmetic injectables like Botox and fillers, and especially with noses. A lot of patients, especially celebrities, especially billionaires, people who are very high powered, used to always getting their way. They'll push things on you. And I think one really strong thing is, about me, I am not scared of saying no. I say no all the time.
I think that's been one of my biggest challenges is someone has your cell phone number.
Yes.
They text you and call you. During the COVID thing, it's been a lot of the things like hydroxychloroquine, some of the other treatments. People want to get like plasma when they don't even have COVID because they think they may have been exposed.
Right.
And
they expect their concierge doctor to be able to give them plasma like a blood boy.
I'm like you, I would rather, listen, if I think ultimately they are hiring me for my expertise, not because I can get them whatever they want.
Yes.
And that has to be the case.
Yeah, you're not a dealer.
And so I tell them I'm taking care of you. The reason I'm saying no is because that's what's going to take care of you best.
Right.
And if that's not a good answer, they have to find a different doctor.
Yeah, then you're not the right doctor. Yeah, you don't want to, because one thing that we all know as doctors is we don't want to be like, rest in peace, Michael Jackson. We don't want to be those doctors who are the yes man.
It's hard,
and
though.
giving propofol to a celebrity in the middle of the night because that's what he wants to sleep. I mean, that's ridiculous. But this guy started with the hydroxychloroquine call.
Right.
And then, you slowly get into this yes cycle where you just do whatever they want.
Right.
All right, little propofol. All right, you did well with that. A little bit more, you did well with that. And all of a sudden now he's propofol dependent for sleeping. And then one day by accident you kill him. We don't want to be yes men.
Let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
No propofol.
Let's be no men, not yes men.
I would be scared to push the propofol. Your wife's
I know.
hero.
Every day when she pushes the propofol.
Just to see their lights go out when you.
I know. And it's because of you and what you put into the bloodstream. I know. It's kind of scary.
When is she coming on?
I can't wait.
I have so many questions about anesthesia.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
A lot of people. It's scary.
So interesting. And doctors know, medical science knows so little about how it works. That's
so little. We literally don't even know how.
So we need her on soon.
Yeah,
we'll
do that.
That's a definite.
For sure. Because we got to talk about also husband and wife working together.
Yeah. So many interesting topics.
I love it. I wonder if she does. I've never asked
her. We also have a lot of questions about feet. It's a big foot day.
It's a big foot day. We're going to go into a lot of details. Are Yeezys good? Are Nikes good?
We better.
Kobe's?
I know who we can ask.
I know who we can ask. Jason Khadavi. Let's bring on our next big guest. We can't wait to talk to Jason. All right, in episode 13, my name is Dr. Deepak Dugar.
And I'm Dr. Jeff Toll.
And we are here today with the podiatry legend, Dr. Jason Khadavi.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes,
Thanks
absolutely.
So much.
Thank you for being here.
The first thing I noticed is those beautiful shoes. Are you a big shoe guy as you're a foot guy?
I am. I am. It's been something that I've been into since I was a kid. And so, absolutely something that I enjoy. These are Kobe's. So, rest in peace, Kobe. We all love him. So,
love him.
Absolutely.
Because I think, as an internist, a lot of people, all the time, that's one of the questions they ask me, especially patients, middle-aged patients who may have, knee pain, hip pain, arthritis, what kind of footwear they should be wearing. That's a very common question.
Absolutely.
Is that something that you can advise patients on?
Absolutely. It's one of the main questions that we get at my practice also. And so, patients will always ask, what kind of shoes should I wear? What's good for me? What'll help? And a lot of times it really depends on the foot type that the patient has. Right now, I think shoes are more in the, there's three types of shoes. There are the neutral, there are the moderate, there are the overpronators. And so it depends on how your foot is.
So what does that mean? So someone's listening and they want to know which of these things.
Great question. Yeah. An overpronator is somebody who their foot collapses down. So basically their arch collapses down and they're basically what you would call flat-footed. And so somebody like that would need a more of a shoe that has more stability. So a shoe that is for a quote-unquote overpronator that has more of an arch support built into it. Somebody who's a supinator is somebody who walks more on the outside of the foot. So they have a high arch. And so for them, they would need, let's say, an oversupinator type shoe where it's more on the pressure on the outside. And then there are other people who would have, again, what you would say is a normal foot. So it's a neutral foot. And they go into the neutral type shoe.
Are there certain brands? So I fall into the category where, like, if you look at the bottom of my shoe, it's always the outside of the shoe that's worn
out. Right. So you're a supinator. So you walk more on the outside of the foot.
I consider myself a supinator.
You're a soup type of guy.
Are there certain brands that are better, or are there certain like the way the shoe looks? How do we know what is the?
So one thing that I always go towards is a shoe that has a lot of stability in it. And what I mean by that is when you come to bend the shoe, it really doesn't bend too much. It has a good amount of stability and support to it. So the brands I'll usually go towards are the New Balances, the Asics, some of the newer Adidases as well are really good. Brooks is always a very popular brand that has really stable shoes. Some of the Nikes, like the Pegasus line and the Fly Zooms, are good too. But a lot of times the shoes that I try to push people away from are the cool Nike Frees or those types of things that you can basically ball up and put into a ball and hand to somebody.
Those aren't better for running?
They're not. It's interesting. There was a time when Vibram Five Fingers were really popular.
Right. Is that the thing where it looks like a glove?
Exactly. Yeah, so it's like you're basically running barefoot. So patients would come into my office all the time and hold them in their hand and say, hey, why can't I run well in these is my friend is running 5 minutes faster on the mile. And I would always have to explain that it has to do with your foot type. I actually saw a lot of people who ended up having stress fractures because those shoes don't give enough support.
Wow.
So that's yeah. So it really just depends on the foot type you have.
How are Yeezys?
Yeah, Yeezys are all right. Actually, they're pretty good. They're probably not the best shoe that I would say, but they have a good amount of support, so they're not bad. Yeah.
And how are the Kobe's you're wearing right now?
These have a lot of support. So I personally, I'm a pronator, so I have very flat feet. So one thing that I always tell patients, and I recommend to patients, is orthotics. I think having good orthotic in your shoe is very important. All pro athletes, if you ever see them, they always have orthotics in their shoe. You'll actually see if they ever give fans their shoes, you'll see them taking the insole out. That's actually not the insole of the shoe. That's their orthotic that they have made for them.
And do you wear the orthotic on top of the insole?
So it depends on how you feel. It really doesn't change the efficacy of the orthotic. You can put it on top of the insole if you'd like the shoe to feel a little bit tighter. If you want to take the insole of the shoe out itself and put the orthotic in, you can do that as well. So that is more personal preference.
And was Dr. Scholl a podiatrist?
But Dr. Scholl was a podiatrist.
Is Dr. Scholl an actual person?
That's cool. I didn't know.
He is. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He actually has a school out in Chicago. I think the story is he's from Chicago. So yeah.
Wow. And so would you say that that's the, like, not necessarily his, but people should just go to the store and buy orthotics, or should they see someone like you to determine what their best one is?
I think getting a custom orthotic is always the best way to go. I always recommend orthotics are kind of like glasses. If you need a generic pair of reading glasses, you go to the pharmacy and pick up a generic pair of reading glasses. If you need prescription glasses, you have them made. Orthotics work the same way. So most people, their foot types, they need a good orthotic, so it's custom made. So we custom make it for them.
Oh, wow. And how long do orthotics usually last?
It depends on wear and tear. Usually they'll last a year, 2 years, up until 5 years, really.
And can you switch them in your shoes? You keep
can.
Whatever shoe you're wearing, you just take it out and put it in?
Exactly.
And how much does a custom orthotic usually run on average?
It'll go anywhere from $500 to up to $1,200. It really just depends on the orthotic and the situation.
And what about women in heels? Can they wear orthotics with heels, or how does that work?
So unfortunately not.
Okay.
That's one thing that we haven't been able to create, only because high-heeled shoes are already so narrow and thin as it is. Just getting their foot is problematic. So trying to get an insert in that, it'll be a little more difficult. So there's now high heels that are coming out that are more orthotic-esque, but you can't. It's really difficult to put it in.
Is it hard for you when you wear your high heels?
Yeah, I never fit into my high heels. That's what I was asking. Yeah, I was very concerned.
There you go.
I always think about that. I mean, I'm sure every podiatrist thinks about, how do we make comfortable high heels for women?
It is definitely something that's always on the top of our minds. It's a question that we always get. Women always, even after, the first question they'll ask after surgery is, can I wear my high heels? That's the first question we always get. Or when can I get back into my high heels? So there's definitely something that everybody always thinks about. I think the industry, there's been people who've tried to make orthopedic high heels, you could say, that are more custom fit to the foot to make it more comfortable. But high heels are just an uncomfortable shoe to begin with. If you think about it,
you're pretty stupid.
Yeah. You don't like them?
Well, I like how they look, but
Yeah.
it's stupid that we've convinced people to wear these things that are extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, men definitely
We
created
got
high
away
heels.
with it. For sure, men came up with it.
Women should not. Should they just revolt and not wear high heels?
I wouldn't be surprised if that was like part of this whole, canceling. They should why aren't high heels canceled?
I heard Netflix is being canceled today.
No.
Did you guys hear about Netflix being canceled? Because they promoted some documentary or some movie about young dancers. It's like an 11-year-old dancer, and they kind of over-sensualized it. So there's a whole cancel Netflix going on right now because of that. It's kind of weird.
You can't cancel Netflix during the pandemic. We really need them.
We literally have nothing to do except for listen to this
That's what everybody's
podcast.
living on, is on Netflix.
And this podcast.
And this podcast.
Absolutely. Especially this podcast.
They listen to this podcast a few times a day and then probably watch Netflix after.
Yeah. When I get sad, I turn it on just to hear my own voice.
Yeah. Your voice is very soothing.
Thank you.
I'm very relaxed after listening to it.
I feel the same way about yours.
Thank you.
So what is a bunion?
Oh.
What's a corn? What's
a corn?
What's a corn?
Yeah.
Other than you eat corn, but that's not.
So a corn, so a corn or a callus. So a callus is basically a hardened skin, which is thickened because of constant pressure. And a corn is usually a callus, but on the toe.
So that's from like rubbing in one spot constantly?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's the body's way of protecting itself. So the way that the body protects itself is it tries to shield itself by making this thickened skin. Unfortunately for us, the thickened skin feels like a rock in our shoe, so it's very uncomfortable. But It happens when people have things such as bunions or hammer toes, and the toe and the skin is rubbing on the shoe or a traumatic area, and it causes this to happen.
So it's kind of like when weightlifters, when you're lifting weights, you get calluses in your hands?
Exactly. It's exactly the same thing. Weightlifters, they're constantly lifting weights and it's a pressure on the area. So it's a pressure point.
And then, so what's a bunion then?
So a bunion is an angulation of the first metatarsal. So the first metatarsal of the foot starts to sway outward. And
metatarsal is a bone.
Way
it's a bone.
Too fancy
Correct.
for us.
The first toe.
Right. And so it's like the first finger of the foot. And so it'll start to sway outward, and then it causes the toe part to fall inward, and that's why you see that bump on the inside of people's feet. There's two main reasons why you get a bunion. Most of the time it's genetic. So 70% of the time it's genetic. So mom, dad, grandparents, things like that.
So they have it as a kid?
Some will have it as a kid. Some
wow.
will
Gotcha.
progressive.
Anything to blame mom.
Yeah. The Jewish guilt.
And 30% of the time it's because of shoes. So high-heeled shoes. For men, it's shoes with tight toe boxes, those types of things, and they'll cause it to progress and come about.
Do they tend to be painful, or they look not great?
They definitely tend to be painful. Most of the time when people have bunions, it's very difficult for them to wear shoes. And not only that, it progresses to become arthritic. So they start to build up arthritis in the joint where the bones start to rub on each other and the cartilage starts to wear away.
So this is so random, but I just thought of this now, is I have noticed an increase in gout in the last, I would say, 3 to 6 months. I think it's because people are drinking more during the pandemic is my explanation of it. Do you treat gout? Have you been seeing gout?
I do.
Yeah.
I have. Yeah. For the same reason. I think what I've been seeing is that people are home more.
Yeah.
So they're eating more, they're drinking more, and they're exercising less. So all these things, unfortunately, are causing these types of gouty attacks to happen. So it's something that I've been seeing more. I've been seeing a lot of people who are having more foot pain in general, because usually people are putting shoes on, going to work. But now that they're home all day behind the computer or whatever it might be, they're walking barefoot on hardwood floors and those types of things. So they're having more foot pain, knee pain, hip pain.
You know my next question.
House shoes?
Yeah. What are you supposed to do? Is house shoes recommended?
I do like house shoes. I know there are a lot of people, a lot of cultures who don't like to wear shoes in houses. I actually don't like to wear the shoes in the house.
We don't wear shoes in our houses.
You can't wear shoes in the house.
Yeah,
right?
it's super disrespectful.
Canadians also don't wear shoes in the house.
Yeah,
I don't know if
interesting.
you knew that.
I'm Canadian too.
I have a lot of Canadian friends, and there's this weird thing where you go into a Canadian's house and they always make you take your shoes off. And I finally figured out, I think the reason is the weather is so bad that usually you would be tracking like mud
and dirt. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it is cleaner. I mean, I don't wear shoes because you're not supposed to in Asian cultures, but like, it's also just disgusting. Like, you see where your feet are half the day, and then you go home and walk around your house.
Your feet with no shoes are disgusting.
My feet with no shoes are disgusting, but until I saw Dr. Jason Khadavi, and now I have beautiful feet. We'll get to that in a second.
Do you paint your toenails?
I do not. No, I like the natural color because just in case, I like to be ready. With surgery, I do surgery, so you can't wear nail polish when you're having surgery because the little pulse oximeter has to be able to read through the fingernails. So I will stay ready, just in case.
Well, who takes a pulse ox on your toe?
We do sometimes if we can't read it on the fingers.
True. That's true.
Yeah, they have nail polish. Anyways, long story short, no, Jeff, I do not wear nail polish.
Gotcha.
But so do you wear shoes in your house?
I don't wear shoes in the house. I wear like a slipper or something just to have something on my feet.
Do you wear anything?
Not really. I do have like house shoes.
Okay.
Do you know what house shoes are?
Yeah, like as soon as you get home, you just switch into those, right?
They're kind of like comfortable slippers. But
like the hotels give you.
No, those are slippers.
Okay.
A house shoe is something you could buy at a cheap store where it's basically like a sole with crappy, like old couch material to like hold it together. I don't know how to describe it.
I actually have something very similar. That's kind of what I wear. It's like kind of like a moccasin. I kind of want to say.
Yeah.
And it's just something to give you some kind of cushioning because if you're walking consistently on a hardwood floor or a hard surface, it's just going to be uncomfortable. It's going to cause pain. So it's always better to have something.
Interesting. And what about sandals? How are sandals for people?
Sandals, That's a tough question. I'm not a big fan of sandals because sandals are just like you're walking barefoot. Now, a lot of sandal companies are actually coming out with sandals that have more arch support and things like that in them. So, like Birkenstocks, if you ever see them, they have a arch support in them. And so there's other brands that are coming out with more supportive sandals. But just a normal sandal, a lot of times, again, it's as if you're walking barefoot, so it's not the best thing.
Interesting.
I used to wear a lot of those rainbow sandals.
Which ones are those?
They're very like Southern California.
Yeah, those are like the ones that the thong sandal.
Thong sandals,
the rainbow tag.
beach,
Yeah.
around USC strolling around. You gotta wear those rainbows.
Yeah, and those are not good for support.
My feet are destroyed. So I was a soccer player like in high school, college. So
Oof.
I have my second and third toe are married forever. So what I mean by that is I fractured my second toe. And I didn't want to tell my coach that my foot was hurting because I was worried they would x-ray it and then make me sit out games.
Sure.
So I started taping them together for like, I don't know. It had to be 3 months worth of games.
Sure.
And so it healed taped together. So now one toe is leaning across the other toe basically permanently.
They
love each other.
Typical athlete.
Yeah.
We deal with it all the time in the practice.
Yeah.
Athletes will
Wow.
come in and that's exactly what they'll have some kind of injury and we'll get an x-ray, we'll get an MRI and it shows up and the last thing they want to hear is that they have to take time off because they're warriors. So it's a battle that we always have.
I've done all sorts of things like this. On my shin, I also had a fracture. Like it was like a kick under my shin guard and it probably broke something and it's same thing. I didn't really want to lose time. So now there's like, it's triple thick, just the bone healed. Like a chip,
Extra calcium, though.
came off probably, and then it all sort of fused together. So now it's just like, it looks crazy.
Have you ever x-rayed it?
Yeah, it looks
Oh,
crazy.
that's hilarious. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Have you broken anything, Deepak?
I don't think so. But I'll tell the story about how you just treated me. So I've been working out in the park right now because trying to do outdoor.
Yeah,
My gym's
yeah.
closed, and I work out with a trainer. And I think I wear really tight shoes, so I needed to understand more about orthotics and what I should do. But I kept like jabbing my thumb toe into my shoe, basically. I think, and so my thumbnail of my toe. I mean, Jason can explain this better. Kept like jabbing into the side of my skin, basically.
I was telling the same story when I was on that Yosemite trip.
Yeah.
When I was climbing up for like 4 hours straight, my toe was hurting.
Yeah.
And it kept getting worse and worse. And then when I got to the top and took my shoe off, I had blood under my toenail.
Whoa.
And I asked a nice, friendly hiker to use their Swiss Army knife, and I trimmed my nails before the. Well, I had to walk down 4 hours.
Wow.
It was 4 hours
with
back
a dirty
down.
Swiss Army knife. You trimmed the front of your toe.
I wasn't gonna walk down. It was hurting. First of all, my toe was bleeding.
Oh my god!
And I had 4 hours to go. I cut them.
Oh
but
my
they're still
God.
black and blue now.
Well, I did a very similar thing, but I let a board-certified surgeon do it. So, what did you do to my toe?
Well, so you were starting to get an ingrown nail happen.
Okay, so
and
ingrown nail
So the
laterally.
nail, exactly. So the nail on the outside of the toe that was rubbing on the area was now getting irritated, and the skin was coming over it. And you even started having a very small, low-grade infection. So we
Yeah.
had to do a partial nail avulsion where I numbed you up, which you handled like a champ.
He's making me sound like a strong
You
guy.
did not
Did he
scream
did he
one
pass
time
out?
at all.
Did he pass out?
He did ask if I wanted to see it, and I was like, no, I'm good. I'm totally good.
And we took that part of the nail out and dressed it up, and now hopefully that nail will come out healthy without any problems.
My
Beautiful.
foot looks and feels amazing. Like it's
Beautiful.
back to normal.
The toes heal well. Like I've definitely broken toenails where they completely, like my big toenail completely gone, and you just kind of like tape it over it, and then it'll come back.
My wife had that happen once where she got, I guess her thumb, but she got it caught in a door handle.
Yeah.
And it got stuck in the door for a second, and then we opened the door and it got stuck, and the entire nail fell off.
Yeah.
And
it's
then
a
it
common
grows
thing.
back.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
so I
it.
have one more big question that we get asked all the time about the toes. People are obsessed with when they get fungus on their toes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's incurable. And so my typical, so the topicals just don't work very well.
Sure.
You have to be incredibly, incredibly diligent. And even if you are, it still doesn't work most of the time.
Sure.
The oral meds are very toxic. So they can damage the liver. When people are young and healthy, they can probably tolerate it. But if they're a diabetic or have other medical problems and they're on other medications, it's usually probably not worth the risk of going on them. You have to check their liver enzymes
Sure.
and all this stuff. It's not
Sure.
worth it. But I do know that some podiatrists can do some like laser type of treatments. Does that work? Does that get rid of them?
I'm not a big fan of lasers because they only work about 50% of the time. And a lot of times they'll come back.
Right.
And sometimes they're very expensive. So I don't usually go towards the lasers. I am a big proponent of the oral medication, even though I know it has the toxicity and all that stuff. What I found is even in patients who have stopped them, if they've ever had a problem with their liver enzymes, once they stop the medication, the liver regenerates right back to normal. So it's as if nothing ever happened. But of course, if they have comorbidities and things like that, it becomes an issue.
Right.
Sometimes, it goes down to the point that we have to remove the whole nail and hopefully allow a healthy nail to come in. Which sounds much worse than it is, but sometimes, we see those fungal nails all the time as well, unfortunately, and so it becomes the longer it lasts, I'm sure you've seen the uglier it gets, and so.
Anytime I watch a movie where they're torturing someone by ripping their toenails off, I get so squeamish.
Can you handle that? Can you handle that?
For you, is that just like? Oh, I don't like his technique. Or is that?
I don't like his technique.
I'm just thinking about the poor guy not having any anesthetic. It's funny. A lot a time when I do a nail,
it looks normal. It doesn't make you squeeze.
It doesn't. No, because I'm used to it.
Yeah.
But it definitely makes me. It makes me cringe a little bit. Absolutely.
Because I get told that all the time. Like I could never be a surgeon. They always say that to me, and I think it's so funny because when I see someone manipulating a nose or a face, it's totally normal.
Yeah.
But when you were manipulating my toe, I couldn't look.
Right.
I just could not look. It made me queasy. I couldn't look at all.
I don't know how either of you guys do any of this.
He just orders us to do these.
When I see face stuff, when I see facial things, I'm opening people up all the time, right? But if I see something facial, it just kind of makes me feel a little off. I have to look away a little bit. And it makes me laugh for the same reason because we're always dealing with bones and blood and those skin and those types of things. But
we should be used to it.
Is that secretly why you do the closed?
I don't want to see blood. I do. I do the closed rhinoplasty because I hate blood.
I just think about these guys are literally peeling someone's nose off.
I know.
And they have to look at the inside.
I feel the same way. Yeah. Leave it for the. These guys are like cowboys. I like my delicate finesse surgery.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
That's how surgery should be.
That's how surgery
This was
should be.
very informative. I think.
So what are some major surgeries that you guys do? Because the bunions and the hammer toes and the toenails. This is like the cosmetic. It looks like and feels like. It's like the pretty package. But what's inside there in the podiatry world?
A lot of times fractures are a major thing that unfortunately we deal with. People breaking stuff all the time because of injuries and those types of things. But one of the main things I think that we do, especially in my practice, is bunions and hammer toes.
Okay.
I think bunions and hammer toes are really the major surgeries that we do, and they're problematic for a lot of people. It's funny. A lot of people sometimes they don't even realize they have a bunion, and they'll find me on Instagram and they'll look at a photo of a before and they'll say, "Oh my foot looks like that. That's my foot. I didn't even know you could do something for it." And they look at the after and like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that could happen." So people have bunions and hammer toes and they're just kind of dealing with it and living with it, and they don't know that you do something for it. And then when they do, they realize that, how great it is because now they can wear shoes, they can do activities they haven't been able to do for years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And do you guys do virtual consults during the whole pandemic?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're doing virtual.
So how do they find it? So if someone's listening right now and they hear they're staring at their toe, they have their shoes off indoors, with no house shoe on.
They can find me on Instagram. My handle is Dr. Jason Khadavi. And they can go to
You
our
got to
web.
spell that probably. Help them.
Sure. Dr. Jason, Jason, Khadavi, KHADAVI.
Okay.
And our website is evofoot.com. So evofoot.com.
Awesome.
Yeah, and you guys are specialists in the Cinderella procedure.
We do, yes.
Yeah.
So that's a procedure that my mentor created, the Cinderella procedure, and it ties all these things that we talked about together to allow patients to again get back into their shoes and feel comfortable and do their activities.
Is that the surgery where you find someone a prince, or what's that one?
So so again, a lot of times what happens with people's feet is they get bunions and what's called tailor's bunions.
Right.
And so a bunion is on the inside of the foot. The tailor's bunion is the exact same thing as a bunion, but it's on the outside of the foot.
Gotcha.
And so what happens is the width of the foot changes.
Gotcha. So they can't fit their slipper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Got it.
So what we do is we
Cinderella.
basically do a bunion surgery and a tailor's bunion surgery, and it narrows the foot.
Gotcha.
So now they can wear their shoes that they haven't been able to wear before, and it fits perfectly like Cinderella.
Beautiful.
Wow, I love it.
What a Cinderella story. This was really great. I think very informative.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
super. Thank you so much, Dr.
Absolutely.
Khadavi. We
Thanks for
appreciate you
having
being
me.
here. Thank you for sharing sharing your insights.
Of course.
And
Thanks for coming.
anyone who needs reference, because I understand my feet are very critical, and I only trust it with the best.
Yeah.
I
Thank you for
appreciate it,
being
guys.
here,
Thanks for
Jason.
having me. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was helpful. I always, I have ugly feet, and I want to know what I can do about it.
And I'm gonna get an orthotic now, a custom one, because I
wa-
realize how important we stand on our feet all day.
My feet hurt that whole hike. I think I need to go get some orthotics.
From Yosemite hike.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys didn't see this, but during a break, Dr. Toll showed us his toenails
I think we should have side-by-side foot photos for this week's
for
episode.
the Instagram post.
Yeah, for
All
the
right.
episode this
All
week.
right. If you're watching this, check out our Instagram pages because we're gonna have some cool feet photos.
So if you enjoy the episode, obviously give us a like, give us a share.
yeah,
If
please.
you want, if you have a foot fetish, you're about to see our toes. So
Yeah, and this will not be on OnlyFans. It's totally free. We're
Free.
just gonna post it on Instagram, no charge.
yeah, well.
Thanks for listening, guys. Episode 13. We look forward. Stay tuned. We have some cool guests coming up.